This episode of the Credit Crunch Lunch has been brought to you by Wiggly Wigglers, the really rural store, purveyors of eco-living and wildlife gardening products. Find out more by visiting www.wigglywigglers.co.uk. Wiggly Wigglers, where you can find the can of worms and other composting supplies. When it comes to starting seeds, you can take an overly complicated approach, or keep it simple like I like to do. Now, there's a number of ways and means of starting seeds, but I like to keep it extremely simple. You can use little pots like this, or slightly bigger ones that they sell or that you might keep after buying starts somewhere else. One of our favorite mediums for starting seeds are just resaved and recycled yogurt containers. You have to punch some holes in the bottom to make them work, but otherwise they're really clean, sterile, and at least you get another use out of them before you send them on to be recycled. And I like to get a basic organic starting mix and just basically fill up several containers about 3/4 full. One of the other things I like to do ahead of time is to make up sticks or labels. These are just popsicle sticks with the name of the varieties I'll be starting today. I've got them already set. And then I've got my seeds here, and I've got them in a plastic tray. It's a little bit damp on a spring day, a little chilly out here. I want to make sure I keep the seeds that I'm not planting in as good a condition as possible, so that when I go to use them later on this summer or next year even, that they're in optimal condition. Now, as far as starting our seeds, some of these seed packets that we got from Seeds from Italy have an internal packet inside, helps keep the seeds a little fresher, and then inside that packet are our other seeds. Now these are a round zucchini, and I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm not going to need more than that. If I'm lucky, all these will come to fruition, and I already have some other varieties of zucchini started, so 1 or 2 plants is all I really need. So then I'm just going to take these and these bigger seeds and just sort of stick them into the soil a little bit, kind of towards the outer edge of the pot. And leave that. I'm going to take my stick and make sure I identify, match it up with the title of the zucchini, title of the package and the zucchini that I'm planting on the stick, and set that in there, and I'll put that aside for the next step. Right now I just want to focus on getting the seeds planted. Now I'm going to plant something with a little smaller seeds, the fennel bulb, the fennel seeds. Wow, those seeds themselves smell phenomenal. So I've got a small handful of seeds. I'm actually going to just tip them over the container, and I'll use the marker stick to separate them out and spread them out over the surface. Nothing fancy here. I just want to get these things started. And mark it, and we'll set that aside for the next step. The celeriac, again, these are very tiny seeds. Throughout the whole process, I want to keep it organized, and so I don't mix up my seeds or my pots and keep everything labeled and correct. There we go. Again, use the stick to spread them out evenly over the surface and then mark them. And I'll go on and do all the seeds this way for each of the varieties. Now in each case, you might think that I've put too many seeds per little container. But in actual fact, we're not growing out the seeds to maturity, all the ones we planted in this container. We're going to grow them up. This is just a way of getting them started. Once they've achieved their second leaf set, then we'll transplant them into individual pots. The idea now is to concentrate them while it's still cold outside, to get them in a place where they'll start growing, and also to know which seeds will germinate, because guaranteed not all of the seeds that I planted today will actually come to fruition. But now that I've got everything all laid out and I've got every pot marked, I have a spare pot with just a little bit of topsoil in it, a little bit of potting soil in it. Now what I'm going to do is, according to the size and thickness and shape of the seed, apply a top coat of soil over the seeds that I've scattered on the surface. Now, the general rule is you plant the seed twice its diameter. On a very small seed, you want a very light coating of soil, and on something like these squash seeds, we can go much heavier. But I just use a little container here and maybe even just a stirring stick just to distribute the soil over the tops. I've stopped off in the polytunnel to give these newly planted seeds a little bit of a drink before we move them into somewhere a little bit warmer. You just want to evenly wet the surface of the soil. I'm not going to mind this cardboard box. And just make sure that the seeds are well still covered with soil. Over here, we've already planted some lettuce in the polytunnel. It's warm enough in here during a sunny day and most of the time for lettuces, but these seeds need somewhere a little bit warmer yet to get started as early as it is right now. Once they're grown up a bit, we can harden them off inside the polytunnel quite nicely. Over here in the grain room of my chicken house, I've just rigged up a simple shop fixture with a couple of growing wavelength fluorescent bulbs. I've got a heat mat out here because this shed is open to the cold, so that helps give everything a start. And I've got this set almost as low as it'll go. I'm just going to put all our new starts under here. These chains here give us a little bit of flexibility and adjustment. Ideally, for the amount that I'm planting, I would have 2 of these lights and be able to use the full width of the mat. But this will work just fine. Everything will be kept warm here from the mat and get 24 hours of light. Once the plants are much taller and we move the light up and we can spread things out a bit more, then we begin to use a timer to turn the light off at night for a short while at a gradually increasing time, coming up to the stage when we're going to set them into the polytunnel and eventually outside to harden off the plants. I've lifted the lamp up so you can get a view of what we've already got started in these much smaller tubes. And look at how densely packed everything is. Here we've got some onions. This is kale, Cavolo Nero getting started. I've got several varieties of cabbage going. And these would be in here, our tomatoes getting started. And we've even gone to the trouble of starting some sunflowers. Now you notice that these are very densely packed, but like I said before, we'll prick these out and plant them into much larger trays, or 2 or 3 to a larger individual pot. So this is just a great way of getting everything up and started and growing in a short space during some of the coldest parts of the year. One final thing I'm going to do is put a piece of chicken wire over these new plantings, just because I noticed that we think we lost some seeds already to mice, and they seem to like the squash seeds most of all. So I don't know if this will help, but it might. The light probably helps keep them from harassing the seeds until they grow. That ought to protect them and keep them in good shape. One other thing you have to do, especially if you use a simple, inexpensive heat mat like this and a light, which is put right down on top. You notice these are very close to the planting containers to get not only the heat but also the light. Very essential that that distance is narrow. But it does tend to dry everything out quickly, so these probably have to be watered on average at least every other day. Sometimes they seem to dry out quicker than others. They need to be watered every day in that case, and that just gets you off to a good start. Well, that's me from my really crowded grain store, getting my seeds started for the spring, getting a jump on the growing season. I'm a little bit late for some things like the onions, but I'm sure that they'll come to whatever they'll come to. The most important thing is that you do try, you get started, you get going, and you get some seeds and plant them. It's not that hard, and if you're lucky and all goes well, you get some delicious local food out of the deal. That's it for now. Take care of yourselves, keep on cooking, but most of all, get growing. Bye now.
Weekly Wigglers love sponsoring Podchef's Credit Crunch Lunch. If you want your own taste of really rural living, visit www.weeklywigglers.co.uk.